Good news for students, you may not need to take mid-year examinations next year. Now, speaking to more than 1,700 teachers at a conference at Singapore Expo Hall earlier today, Education Minister Ong Ye Kung gave this update and shared the progress schools have made in implementing recent policy changes. By next year, more than half of primary schools and over 90% of secondary schools would have removed mid-year examinations for some levels, which is a year ahead of its stipulated schedule. Now, to tell us more, I have education correspondent Amelia Teng. Amelia, welcome to the show. Now, Amelia, to start off, can you tell us, what is this trend? What can we make of this trend? It seems as though, the direction that MOE is taking with scraping mid-year examinations, and then previously, with streaming, and then even with the changes to the PSLE scores as well. What can we make of this trend?
Okay. So MOE has overall been, trying to move away from this overemphasis on academic grades in the last few years, and hopefully in that process reduce some of the stress that a lot of students and parents have been talking about for decades. And so by next year, more than half of the primary schools and more than 90% of secondary schools here will be doing away with the mid-year examinations. So this will be at primary 3, primary 5, Sec 1 and Sec 3 levels. And also MOE had announced in March about its doing away with the streaming as we know it. So the normal technical, normal academic and express streams in secondary schools. And so in its place would be this thing called full subject-based banding. What it really means is so students would take subjects at differing difficulty levels depending on your strengths in whichever subjects. So more schools have actually volunteered to come forward and be part of the pilot, which starts next year. So MOE had a 3-year deadline by 2021 for the schools to implement some of these changes, but it's actually good that the schools are coming on board ahead of schedule. And it means they're really on board all these changes.
And they want to participate in these changes moving forward. And of course, at the conference as well, Minister Ong also mentioned about changes to and expansion plans to the 2-year program in literature and mother tongue languages. He also mentioned that the bilingualism policy, it can be considered as a hallmark of Singapore's education system. Neuroscience research has shown that there are cognitive advantages for those who are bilingual from a young age. Now, these include better working memory, longer attention spans, and multitasking abilities. So he mentioned about these expansion plans. What do these expansion plans entail?
So not many people know about this program called the Language Elective Program, which has been actually around since 1990.
Or the LEP for short, right?
The LEP for short, in a few junior colleges. So what they're doing now is to expand this language elective program to secondary schools, 15 schools next year, and a few more JCs as well. So this program, a lot of people or students, think that Chinese lit or even Malay lit or Tamil lit is kind of chim and it's hard enough to master your own mother tongue, and now you want to do literature. So, but the program uses tries to use creative ways to try and engage students at a deeper level to know the culture behind your language and your mother tongue. So if you're a student in this program, you can do you can attend like creative writing workshops. You go for like overseas immersion trips to China or to Malaysia. And so there's a range of enrichment activities that would not be available to someone who's just doing a literature class or Chinese class.
Normal program.
Correct.
Coincidentally, Amelia, I was actually part of the LEP program, the Malay Language Elective program in TP, in Tampines Junior College. So I think it's quite nice to see that the program is going to be rolled out to other schools as well beyond just JC, because I remember at my time it was just TP, and then after that Innova got it, and then now it's rolled out to more JCs and even secondary school level as well, right? And talking about that, Amelia, of course, Minister mentioned some reasons as to why these plans have been rolled out. What are some of the reasons that he cited in terms of wanting to uphold bilingualism in Singapore?
So Bilingualism has always been a very big part of Singapore's education policy and schools. So we always know that you need to learn English as well as your mother tongue. But in recent months, this topic has somewhat come up again a bit strongly in some of Minister Ong's speeches. And maybe especially because of the SAP schools, Special Assistance Plan schools, which are celebrating their 40th anniversary this year. So he has defended this bilingualism, biculturalism policy that MOE has held for many years. And in today's speech at the event, he spends quite a lot of time talking about why bilingualism is important, why being fluent or being able to converse in two languages is needed for to access global opportunities at this time. And so firstly, I guess because of the region around us and how fast Asia is growing, and being in this region, it is really an advantage to be multicultural and to know
multilingual as well, right?
To know the languages of the region. And in fact, the graduates of the LEP that I spoke to last week, they all had the same consensus that being able to know Chinese at a deeper level, Malay at a deeper level, helped them in their careers. And their greatest takeaway was that language and culture are very interconnected. So if you know a language, you don't just know a language, but you know the people and you understand them. Behind the language.
And of course, Singapore is not unique in its bilingual policy as well. Right?
We often think that we are somewhat unique, but actually a lot of countries are also catching up.
Right.
In China, now you have to learn English as a compulsory subject in primary school, and in Europe it's very common to learn like 2 or 3 languages from ages 6 to 9. So these were some of the examples that Mr. Ong had talked about.
And of course, Amelia, on that note, you talked about in Europe where they take more than 2 languages, 3 languages. Mr. Ong also mentioned about the third language policy, because right now it is only offered to the upper echelon, as it were, the top 10% of the cohort. Are there plans for the third language policy to be expanded as well?
So he hasn't said much about this, but it sounds like the MOE is exploring ways to make third languages more flexible, more accessible to more students. So beyond just the top 10%. So meaning that you could take maybe French or German at conversational level without having to take the exam. So I think it's a good start because you don't have to. Not everything in school has to be tested. Tested.
Right?
And you just learn the language because you're interested in it.
For sure. And of course, in turn as well, learn about the culture and everything that has to do with the language as well. Right. Again, thank you, Amelia, for coming on board to the show. So if you're one of the students who are benefiting from the exams that are going to be scrapped next year, well, good for you, right? For those of you who unfortunately, your schools haven't jumped onto the bandwagon yet, don't worry, it will eventually be rolled out to your school once it reaches to that phase, right? Once again, thank you, Amelia, for coming on board to the show. And those are our top stories for the day. For more news and videos, do log on to our website at www.straitstimes.com. Once again, I'm Haryanto. Join us again, same time tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.